Boop, 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 boop. Hey folks, Nick Culbertson here. When I was 5 years old and my little candy-coated fingers didn't have the dexterity to play their way through video games, I watched my brother and his friend battle their way through the ranks of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. The year was 1987. That little boy was blown away by what he saw on the screen. Big, chonky boxer characters. The design, the artwork, the technical aspects of the system all came together in perfect harmony in creating this game. I apologize, I'll never do that again. Punch-Out was first introduced at the arcades, where it was a very different game. The sprites were much larger. You were actually looking through a wireframe of the boxer while you were in the fight. The boxers just looped because it was arcade style, and it was very random fights that increased in difficulty. It has to be said that there are some stereotypes within these characters, like all of them. They were toned down a little bit for the home console release, but on the arcade they had the Italian boxer, Pizza Pasta, and the Russian boxer, Vodka Drunkinsky. But Russians were getting a bad rap in media anyways in the late 80s and early 90s. I think the Cold War was going on or something, but I don't know, I was busy playing Punch-Out. As Nintendo's home console started to take off, it only made sense for them to port Punch-Out from the arcade cabinets to the home. The only problem was the graphical and programming limitations of the NES didn't allow for a direct port of Punch-Out. So Makoto Wada was put to the task of creating these big characters and redesigning Punch-Out for the home console. Nintendo doesn't do the best job of giving credit to their artists, so I'm not sure if he did all the spriting or if he just did the designing of the characters, but whoever did it, we salute you. So to help Punch-Out have a mass appeal to a US audience, they needed to have a famous boxer. So they entered into an agreement with Mike Tyson to have his name and likeness in their game for 3 years for a rumored amount of $50,000. That is $117,000 adjusted for inflation today. So apparently this $50,000 contract they had with Mike Tyson was a big gamble for Nintendo at the time. But the gamble paid off. The game sold really well, and Mike Tyson became the biggest name in boxing. I mean, he was the biggest name in sports at the time. And us kids in the suburbs couldn't get enough of it. A taste of what it was like to be in an actual fight. Not really, I've never been in a fight. But I've seen a lot of Jason Statham movies, so I'm pretty sure I can hold my own. Hey, I don't want any trouble. After the contract with Mike Tyson ended, they changed the name of the game from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out back to Punch-Out, and basically just reskinned the last boss from being Mike Tyson to being Mr. Dream, or Fanny Pack Dwayne Johnson. So now that we got all the history out of the way, let's take a look at the beautiful sprite work of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I'm gonna try and keep this all very organized. I'm just kidding, it's gonna be all over the place. Let's get started. So here is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES. When you first fire it up, there's this little intro animation, and then we jump into our first fight with Glass Joe. When Glass Joe is entering the fight, there's this one unfortunate frame where his eyeball is up on his forehead. I don't know if this was a programming mistake or an artist mistake, but we'll go ahead and say it was a programming mistake. Then we start our fight, and this is the gameplay. Little Mac is there on the bottom. He can jump to throw uppercuts, or he can do body blows or dodge. I love how the artist shows so much expression in the characters in such few frames. In this frame, you can see Glass Joe's gaping open mouth, and if you hit him while he's in this pose, you will see in the next frame his head fully tilted back. If you do a body blow to Glass Joe, you'll see he's in this frame where he's all scrunched up, and notice how his eyes get really big with tiny little pupils. Once you knock your opponent over, there's this quick animation showing them fly across the ring when referee Mario comes out and starts his count. At certain points in the fight, you might be awarded a lucky star, and if you hit start, you can use this star punch for Little Mac to send a large uppercut to his opponent. I love this frame where Little Mac is rotating his entire body. This is something in the art world we would call really cool. Once Little Mac finishes up Glass Joe, we move on to the next fight. When you beat an opponent, Little Mac comes out for this little awkward celebration. Honestly, it's one of the more goofy looking things in the game, but there's some charm to it. It reminds me of the celebration from the game Slalom. Glass Joe is a scrub, on to the next. Von Kaiser from Berlin. He's one of those boxers that has that classic boxer look. One of the techniques they use with their sprites to show off depth is foreshortening. Notice whenever Von Kaiser does his jab, his boxing glove actually becomes twice the width of his head. To show the range of motion that happens between each frame, look at this uppercut from Von Kaiser. He starts out scrunched up in a little ball, then has one frame of movement in the middle before extending all the way up into a large stretching uppercut. Notice the gaping mouth when he's open to receive an uppercut, and the big eyes when he's stunned from a gut punch. If Little Mac finishes Von Kaiser with an uppercut, he sends him sailing across the screen and celebrates with his awkward dance. Von Kaiser, more like Von. On to the next. Next, we head off for our title bout against our opponent, Piston Honda. Piston Honda is a bad mamma jamma. Now, Honda is an awesome looking character. You can tell they're utilizing every pixel in his sprite to fill out his bulky mass on top, and in only a handful of frames they make Honda feel like a dynamic character with a large range of motion. In one frame you can see Honda winding up for a punch, and in the very next frame his entire body is twisted with that extreme foreshortening on the boxing glove. In these 2 frames after receiving an uppercut, you can see how they entirely changed the look of the sprite by just changing the head. Little Mac delivers a tightly wrapped punch into Piston Honda's bread box, and we move on to our next opponent. Sleep well, sweet prince. After we beat Honda, we move on to my favorite scene of the game, the cutscene. Here we have a little training montage where we see Little Mac chasing after Doc as they take a jog across from the Statue of Liberty, presumably from Brooklyn. I'm gonna play this entire thing just because it's so cool. This is reminiscent to the training montage from Rocky. However, I don't remember Rocky wearing a pink jumpsuit, which is just a big missed opportunity if you ask me. I would actually say this is one of the most iconic moments from any NES game. Don Flamenco. Hailing from Madrid, Don Flamenco looks like an early days Adam Sandler. He has one of the more colorful opening animations with the rose in his mouth. The way the enemy AI works on this opponent is he waits to block a punch, then he follows up with his own counterpunch. I never noticed this before, but the body of Don Flamenco is actually the same as Glass Joe. In Super Mario Bros. 1, both the clouds and the bushes use the same sprite, and they did this as a way to save space. Well, Punchout uses this same technique to have a variety of boxers by changing the color palette and the opponent's head, all while utilizing the limited storage space of an NES cartridge. We send Don Flamenco skating across the screen a couple of times, and then we move on to our next boxer, King Hippo. Now, King Hippo definitely has the best profile animation of the bunch, and he's definitely the most out there character, very much like a cartoon. Deliver a punch to his open mouth and then follow up with punches to the belly, and you'll send King Hippo packing after just 1 knockdown. When King Hippo is falling down, you'll see there's this one frame that gets flipped from left to right. Mario gives the 10 count, and then we move on to our next fighter, Great Tiger. Great Tiger is utilizing a lot of the same moves we've seen from the other characters leading up to him, but there's something strikingly familiar about Great Tiger. I can't quite place my finger on it. Wait a minute, could it be that Great Tiger is just a reskin of Von Kaiser? Von Kaiser is Great Tiger, Great Tiger is Von Kaiser. Your entire childhood was a lie. Some of the fighters have their own special moves. For Great Tiger, he will spin around in a circle, but if you get past this barrage of punches, it opens him up for an uppercut for Little Mac to send him sailing. Then we wait for Mario, do our awkward dance, and move on to the next fight. Here we're fighting Bald Bull. I have a lot of favorite characters in this game. Every time I come to a character, I'm like, oh, that's my favorite character. But my other favorite character is Bald Bull. He is a signature character in the series, making his way into almost all the games. I haven't played all the games, but okay, I'll say he did make it into all the games. And something about like the O that his mouth makes reminds me of that old Muscles character, which it turns out is a really big deal in Japan. I mean, we had the Muscles action figures when we were a kid. There was even a Muscles video game, but little did I know that he went on to have his own series. Anyways, I got a little off topic, but now Bald Bull is coming at ya. Just take a look at this big barreling behemoth. In many ways, Bald Bull is Punchout. When Bald Bull delivers his jab, you can see his massive fist, and he is incredibly expressive when he is taking a blow. If Little Mac doesn't have what it takes to beat Bald Bull, he's treated with this taunt. When Little Mac sends Bald Bull to the mat, you can almost feel it. Mario does his count, and this frame is the absolute worst. I mean, it's great in terms of art. When you see that eyeball, you know Bald Bull's about to come back at ya. Time your body blow just right, and you'll deliver a punch that sends him right back to the mat. We do our awkward little dance, and then we move on to the next cutscene. It's really the same cutscene, only it's nighttime. Next, we move on to a rematch of Piston Honda. Honda 2 has some new patterns like throwing 3 jabs in quick succession, but other than that, there's nothing really too new here, so let's move on. Soda Popinsky, a piece of chiseled man meat. Even though the name of Vodka Drunkinsky was changed to Soda Popinsky, which I think is a much better name anyways, some of the dialogue in the cutscenes remain from the drinking days, referencing things like being punch drunk, not being able to drive, and drinking to Little Mac's health. Let's see this big old pink boy in action. He's like a beefed up Kirby. Notice his single pixel nipples. If you don't like single pixel nipples, you don't know what you're missing. 2 pixel nipples would be too big, but single pixel nipple, perfect nipple size. When Soda Popinsky is stunned, he has his eyes jiggling all about, and you can notice once again how much movement there is between the stun frame and the hit frame. While the other big characters of the game have been bulky, this is one that just has lean muscle body mass. In just 3 frames, Soda Pop goes from being in a little ball into this dramatic frame when he delivers an uppercut. We do some more bobbing and weaving, punching and achieving, and we send Soda Popinsky sailing before moving on to our next fight. Bald Bull 2. This time Bald Bull is just like he was before, except for harder. But still nothing compared to the difficulty we'll see ahead. Next we have Don Flamenco 2, this time he's quite a bit faster. I love this piece of dialogue from him in between rounds. Flamenco strikes back, Return of Dawn. Next we send Don Flamenco packing back to Madrid, and we move on to our next fight. Mr. Sandman. Sandman is our first US opponent, and his signature move are these uppercuts. Sandman's body type is a reskin of Bald Bull, but once again it is changed entirely with the palette swap and a new head. Here's a better look at Sandman and his giant uppercut, and I love the expressiveness of his stunned or hurt frames, and you get an extended look at this frame whenever you're sending him to the mat. If you lose to Sandman, he and the game begin to taunt you. But you get back up, Little Mac. You gotta fight. But after a few more attempts, you'll have what it takes to book Sandman on the first flight back to Philly. Next, we move on to our title bout and the last fight before Mike Tyson. Now onto my favorite character of the entire game, aside from Doc, Super Macho Man. The muscles, the mullet. This pectoral animation is video game gold. Alright, Super Macho Man. How bad could he be anyways? Oh, you're gonna be fighting Super Macho Man a lot. While the body type is taken from Soda Popinsky, the new head and palette shift makes Super Macho Man feel like his own character, and one of my personal favorites. The extension of his uppercut is so exaggerated, with his fist all the way up to the sky, his head tilted back. I mean, just look at him, he's awesome. The face he makes whenever he is stunned is one of my favorite frames from the game, and these are the frames for his super punch. You can see how the character traverses a large amount of space between each frame, but when played in quick succession, it reads perfectly as a spinning punch. The way they represented all the detail of this character in these limited number of pixels is incredible. It's really a masterclass on how to do a character in pixel art. Take notes, my friends. I know I am. If you time your star punches just right, you might just have what it takes to send Super Macho Man sailing. At this point, the credits actually roll and you could think, I've beaten Punchout. But no, we know the name of the game is Mike Tyson's Punchout. And that means we have one more bout to go, and I'm about to go get it. One thing to note on this newspaper clipping is the quote, "Daddy, come back home." Who are they talking about? Was this a programmer from Nintendo who felt guilty about spending too much time away from his family? Or does Little Mac have kids we don't know about? Or is someone talking to Mario using the dirty form of Daddy? Daddy, come back home. Now we're on to our dream fight. In subsequent releases, this would be against Mr. Dream, but today we're fighting Tyson. Here we go. It's time to take on Tyson. You know what we're gonna need? Another montage. Look, we don't have to do a montage every time we're gonna do something. You know, we could just, okay.
Yo, Adrian! I did it! Little Mac, don't have a heart attack. Get back on track, or you'll never win. I pity the fool. Tyson is coming for you, and he's a real tough dude. But then you do what you do, because you're Little Mac. Yeah, yeah! Fight back!
Get up, you son of a... 'cause Mickey loves you.
You know all the moves, and yeah, you got this, dude. Doc believes in you too. Now do what you do, because you're Little Mac.
So here he is, Kid Dynamite himself, Mike Tyson. When you're first fighting Tyson, you're gonna lose a lot. This is because in the first minute and a half of the first round, any punch that Tyson delivers, if it lands on Little Mac, is gonna send him down to the mat. Once again, the frames of Tyson are awesome. This is Tyson's stun frame, very expressive, but you can still tell who it is. And here's a celebration frame from Tyson should he win. I'm really impressed with how they captured his likeness. It's the perfect exaggerated form you would want for the real Mike Tyson. If you get past the first minute and a half, then Tyson will start winking at you and throwing these jabs. These are a little bit easier to dodge, and then Little Mac can follow up with a string of uppercuts. Ideally, Tyson will be close to being knocked down when you get to the end of the first round. In the start of the second round, Tyson comes out with a string of jabs just like Piston Honda, and then goes into a flurry of jabs and uppercuts. Dodge those and do some counter punching, and you can do the unimaginable, knocking Mike Tyson to the mat. As the round goes on, you're going to want to try to rack up some star punches. Send those star punches back his way, and you'll achieve knockdown number 2. After a while, you start to recognize Tyson's patterns, and you start dodging them. You don't even know how, but you're dodging the punches. Finally, if you earn a couple more star punches, you'll have just enough time to send Tyson to the mat for the third and final time. TKO, baby! Eat that, Tyson! Kissing my butt, Mike Tyson. You've done it, Little Mac. Show the world that awkward celebration one last time. Finally, you are congratulated by Mike Tyson before rolling the credits. And that, my friends, is why I love the art of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Nintendo was in the works to a sequel to Punch-Out! For the NES, but it seems early on that project was nixed and passed on to a third-party developer. Well, it does have this sexy ring girl, but it feels a little rushed. The art in the game and the programming, all of it feels like it wasn't given the proper time to be a true successor to Punch-Out! If you want to check it out for historic reference, it's out there. Just don't look for Power Punch 1 because it doesn't exist. Some of the frames and animations are a little bit cursed, but there's also a lot of charm that made its way onto some of the characters. You can't tell me this dude doesn't look like a mini version of Worf with chicken legs. Dropped in. Hey folks, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you like this kind of content. Let me know in the comments if you do. I'd love to put out some more of these video game retrospectives. I find it really fascinating to go back and look at these old games to see what they did, how they did the what, why did they do that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you face punchers next time. It's Lil Mac.